This is Raymond Lee, and you are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow. I'm Albie, and as always with me is Hayden.
And I will always love you.
Ooh. And returning is Mr. John Irons. How you doing, John?
I'm great. I will love you intermittently.
We've got a repeat offender, our very first one.
If you don't know
right?
John, go back and watch the after show for A Decent Proposal. He joined us on that one, and we had a great time. So we're very lucky to have him back. And thank you so much, John, for coming back.
I am honored to have been invited. Thanks
You're a glutton for punishment.
We have a great show today. We have interviews with really cool people. First off, we have an interview with Jamie Jackson. She is the woman who composed the song for Fellow Travelers, Traveling On.
Cool.
And we talked to her about how the whole process went and even the technical details of how they do it. So it's really cool. Spoiler alert, I love this song. So it's awesome that we got to talk to her. Me and Matt talked to her, and we'll play that a little bit later. And also on the show is Janis Calavicci, Al's daughter,
Nice.
Georgina Reilly. We got Georgina Reilly. How cool is that?
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So we've got the whole main cast and the main recurring character as well.
Yeah, my instincts and feelings tell me she's going to be part of the main cast. I don't know. This is what I'm thinking. I don't know anything, but I'm feeling it. I'm feeling like she's going to join the team. You know?
I kind of have that feeling as well, to be honest. She's, I think that people are going to have to apologize to her a little bit and grovel a little bit, but I do think that her skills are going to end up being very necessary down the track.
Interview's coming up towards the end of the show. And speaking to what you were saying, if you notice, I think it was me and Christopher and Matt talking to Georgina. And when Christopher mentioned that she's the big bad of Quantum Leap, the big villain, and she kind of had these little dimples going on, like, you don't know yet, do you? Kind of thing. Because we hadn't watched this episode when we interviewed her. It was about a little bit ago. So, now knowing what we do know, it's kind of interesting hearing what she says. So, that'll be later in the show. So we're really excited about that. In today's episode, we were talking about episode 109 of the new Quantum Leap series. It's called Fellow Travelers. John, what did you think of this episode?
I like this episode. I appreciated that they gave me a recap after the break to to catch me up on, and it's not like I forgot, like, the main plot, but it was good to kind of, hold my hand and walk me through, okay, this is what we're doing, this is why he's doing it, this is where we are in the story. And I enjoyed it. I like the Leap stuff. I like the back of the project stuff. I like the parallel storylines about trusting the people around you. It was good. I enjoyed it.
It felt a bit like a parallel to when season 1 went to season 2 in the original series as well. Just that very slight increase in the amount of footage and a slight change in the saga cell. I know that this is still technically part of season 1, but it does feel like we're getting far enough into it that it's, getting into its status quo now, and it's really feeling like a proper series, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt that as well. We know that they didn't take a break before producing this episode. It just was the break for us, the viewers. But it does seem like, for some reason, there was like a step up in everything in this episode. So it's interesting, and looking forward to seeing what's happening.
They were doing a bit more with the hologram effects, I noticed.
Oh, yeah, the new I like that. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
That happened like 3 or 4 times, I think, in the episode. It was really good. And
I do think we saw Addison go through some stuff too, if I remember correctly, which we haven't really seen very much of.
Well,
yeah, I think Ben ran through her, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
When he was trying to save Carly Farmer from the falling lights.
And we're back to the hockey puck.
Yep, back to the hockey puck, and she has a mute button on it. So they were really trying to get in touch with her because, imminent danger, and she kept muting it because she was having a conversation. But I guess eventually they broke through somehow. I don't know. We don't have her perspective on that. I really enjoyed this episode, though. It felt like maybe season 3 episode of the original series. It had that feeling and tone to me, and that's a good thing. I really liked it. I love the look of it. I love the story.
We should say that this episode was written by Dean Georgenis and Drew Lindo.
It was directed by David Grossman, so good job by all. The director of photography of this episode was Christopher Duddy. Chris, he did really good on this episode. I just love the look of it. I'm sure I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but just the whole thing felt very, warm, cozy, happy place to me. So
I don't think it really felt like season 3 to me. It seemed a bit more like the early season 2, where it was a start of the status quo. That sort of feel is what I got from it. I thought it was, in the grand scheme of things, quite a simple leap and a sort of simple story to follow. I tend to judge things based on how easily I could pick them, and I had it kind of picked straight away that, you got to check the typewriter. I saw straight away, even before they said it, that it was the same typewriter. And immediately I thought, all right, everyone here is too obvious. Who's the only other person? Oh, it must be one of the backup singers. So
really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
John,
I had that in my mind immediately.
John, did you know who done it?
I did not know who done it. In fact, Carly, the actress who played Carly, Deborah Ann Ball, was very good. She was good throughout the whole episode. But she was she put a lot of emotion into that talk, out on the balcony or wherever it was with Ben. And for a split second, I was like, was she trying to take her? Because she was talking about how hard it was to be on the road and, and the sound checks and she misses. And I'm like, okay, are you done? Are you done with the road? Is that what this is?
Wow. I never
So yeah, so I was way off. But no, I did not figure out who it was, because I obviously after I realized that was not the case, and the manager guy was too obvious. Agreed.
As was the sister.
But that was still 4 or 5 different people. It could have been. It could have been the backup singers or any of the other, like the hairdresser, I think, or the people that traveled with her, or even the woman at the hotel. How's your mom? I don't know why she would, but
why?
It's
yeah. Well, we knew they had a
reason.
history together, so that gave it a little bit of a maybe.
Yeah, it's gotta be my general whodunit rules are, it's gotta be someone that the audience is at least
has seen
enough to, it's that person. It can't just be someone they've never met. It's got to be someone who is relevant enough so that when the red herring is out of the picture, they're one of the people that you think of. So I was more along for the ride than necessarily trying to figure it out. I was enjoying the performances.
It's funny. I only just realized this, but this is pretty much the same story as Glitter Rock, isn't it? Or very, very similar to it. The same sort of setup, the same sort of people as suspects. And ultimately, there was really only one person it could have been. So
when I watched this episode, I absolutely knew for a fact who done it the whole time. And I was completely wrong. I thought it was Amanda. I thought it was the whoever was managing the theater, because we see her a little bit in the beginning. She has a name, and then we don't see her for the rest of the episode. So, I think I have that little instinct from I did a Castle podcast way back in the day, and in Castle it was always the first or second person they met in every episode for however many seasons.
Super helpful with the investigation.
Yeah.
Well, it's always the most famous guest star.
Oh yeah, that happens too. Yeah, so it's always got to be them, because they will never be who done it.
That's why I thought it was Deborah Ann Woll. She's the most famous guest star in this episode.
Yeah, that's true. True Blood. Wow. Yeah, it was cool to see her in that episode.
Daredevil.
Yeah, all kinds of good stuff. Yeah, she was really good in this episode. The conversation on the balcony. Also later on when her and Ben were talking about just her sister, Carly's sister, and just the emotion from both of them. Because like Raymond Lee, he's like an amazing actor and he's got so much talent. So for somebody to be able to keep up with him and match him in a scene, and she totally nailed it. And even like the little tone changes in the voice while she was like talking to him, I just that part of the story where they have the, you know, kind of the heartwarming wrap up ending that we love in Quantum Leap a lot. I think they just got perfect, and she was a big part of that. So the other thing is when I was watching it, also I watched it with Serenity. Rennie thought it was Trevor the whole time, and I thought, no, red herring, a little too obvious. But then towards the end with the typewriter stuff, I was like, oh, maybe. So I really bought into that then, even though I knew it was Amanda, but it wasn't Amanda. So I just think they did really good with the whole mystery part of it.
Yeah, I kind of, I kind of cheat. That's not even cheating on mysteries. Like, okay, how much time is left in the episode? Mm-hmm. If we've got 30 minutes left, the person that they've got in custody is not the one who did it. Like,
yeah, that's true.
We got 30 minings left. Like,
yeah, then what are you going to do for that time? Yeah.
Ironically, he eliminated himself as an option by getting caught too early.
Speaking of timing of this episode, this was the first episode that I felt like it was a full hour, even though it was the same 42 minutes or whatever. To me, I don't know if it's the pacing was different, the editing, the directing, or just, maybe they put less on the page. So more of the story was important and less cramming it all in. But it felt like everything had breathing room. It felt like the actors had time. It felt like it wasn't just like they weren't like trimming frames just to get everything in. The people really had time to do their scenes, and you could see their emotions and you could see everything. And it just made it feel longer and less rushed, but in a good way, if that makes sense.
Well, it did also feel like the CSI Quantum Leap part of the episode was a bit shorter. I don't know if it was. I didn't actually count it, but it did feel like we got through that a little bit quicker too. So maybe that might be part of it.
I was going to say the same thing. Like they definitely, it felt to me that they spent more time with the leap than back at the project. So maybe on those other episodes, maybe you're like, okay, well, I want to get back to the leap. So that maybe that's to you is why it feels more rushed, because they're not showing you what you want to see as much. Mm-hmm. And you can't wait to get back to it.
That could be a big part of it. I was trying to find something about this episode that I didn't like, because, you want to have your likes and dislikes. And it was very difficult for me to find something I didn't like. The only thing that I didn't like really was there wasn't enough Ian. So I guess I can't have my cake and eat it too. I can't have more Leap story and less Ian, or less back at the project. Right. But the project stuff that they did have with Janis and Jen, I really enjoyed. I kind of popped when they said Belize, because, I haven't been in the United States most of my life, and I only went to a few other countries, and it was like on a Carnival cruise or something. So Belize is actually a country I've been to for like 2 hours, so I was like, I've been there. I know where that is.
Nice.
Well, they figured out that she was in Belize very, very quickly. I mean, I think some of Magic's ESP might have come into play there too, but then again, it was actually smart. Jen who figured it out, wasn't it? Yeah,
that was Janis. That was Janis using her. If I were on the run, this is where I'd go and why.
Yeah, and all logical reasons. So I mean, that's what she gets paid to do, figure that stuff out. So I mean, yeah, I think it had to do with the new power plant or something like that. So that was a big part.
It was that there was a new power plant right there, so she could draw power, and there was. It's a place with a lot of tourist activity, so she wouldn't stand out. And there was some other thing that I can't remember.
Which is true, because I was one of
them. I'm sure it was a no extradition thing.
No extradition treaty. So they ended up kidnapping her. What do you think about that?
That's fine. I mean,
they legally didn't take her.
No.
So.
Yeah. I also like the extreme competence of the Quantum Leap crew. Ian is immediately like, right, if that's what Janis is doing, why don't we try doing it and see what we can come up with? So it was really because they were using Ziggy's simulations to try and figure out what Janis would likely do,
Mhm.
just because they'd seen Janis do something similar to them, which makes perfect sense. You would think that maybe Janis would have a failsafe against that, wouldn't you?
That's true. You never
I
know.
think I don't know how much of Janice's plan was a plan. I mean, and I know it seems like she's always 3 steps ahead, but I also get the sense that she's just very smart and she improvises well. So I think she did not expect them to be as hot on her heels as they were. So,
Or was she?
or
Maybe
was
she always planned to get caught. Maybe
she needs to get back to the
thought,
project?
maybe this is the way that I actually can get hired by Project Quantum Leap. Help out Ben and then be something indispensable that they need that, they can't do without. If they need me, they'll hire me. So
Well, that's a good point. I've seen that sometimes in fiction is where you're trying to get into a top security place and trying to get infiltrated, and one of the best ways is to get them to arrest you to bring you there. So that's a good point. I didn't think of that, but I did think maybe she did it on purpose. But again, if Ziggy's trying to figure out what she's going to do in the future, like, can she do something that Ziggy won't figure out? I don't know.
I like the conversation between her and Janice at the table. I thought that was a nice, not just cat and mouse, but they she made like a really good point. She's like, okay, Jen said, well, Ben trusts you, so I trust you. When you're like, well, great, that's fair. And then Janice replied, well, okay, well, Ben didn't trust you, so why should I? I was like, well, that's also fair. It's a very good point.
yeah.
So, I mean,
and not only that too, I think that there's this, they're starting to sow some seeds that, the version of the project that actually sent Addison out originally and the version of the project that sent out Leaper X, there might be something nefarious going on there because of the fact that Ben went to Janis. As Janis pointed out, Ben came to me. He didn't come to you when you had everything available there to help him. So, yeah, I'm kind of interested to find out how, the ones that we've been following all along actually do turn out to be the villains.
These scenes, there was, I think, 2 of them, and they were kind of short, but we learned a lot in these scenes, I think. And a lot of the episode, I think, I might just be crazy conspiracy theory here, but I think we're learning a lot in these nonverbal communications that we're getting. We're like, these actors are so good. Like, I think they're thinking about what's going on, and we're reading what they're thinking without them saying it, if that makes sense. But when Janice mentioned to Jen, Ben came to me, think about why. That's like a big clue as to Ben really doesn't know who to trust or can't trust anyone at the project back at headquarters. And then it gave me like, I was in whodunit mode. So, and then when Jen got that information from Janice, she was like, oh, you're right. That does make sense. Like in her mind, I think. And to me, that gave me the feeling that Jen isn't the one that Ben should be worried about, which early on in the series, I was thinking it was Jen. And then I was going through my head for this process of elimination. Who is it that Ben can't trust? And I was going through it and I was like, I don't think it can be Magic because I love Magic and I believe in Magic. And, I'd hate to see him be a villain, because he's just Ernie freaking Hudson. And then I was thinking it's not going to be Ian because Ian's like too cool for the show. They're not going to make Ian the bad person. So I was like, well, who is left? What are your thoughts on this? Because I have a theory, but I want to know your guys' theory on who is it that Ben can't trust and why.
I didn't necessarily think that it was one of the core team. I thought it was more the higher ups, the management, the project getting militarized. But I will disagree with you. If it is one of the core team, I think Ian is a good choice.
Really?
Yes, because they're adorable.
Yes.
Because they're like the least likely suspect.
Ooh, but I don't want it to be.
And they're obviously the most familiar with the tech. I don't want it to be either. Like I said, I don't necessarily think that it's any of the core team. Like they seem sincere when they're having their talks with Magic. But I mean,
well, I think it could be a member of the core team, but not one that either of you mentioned. I
Addison?
think it could be Zig. I think it could be Ziggy. I think
Really?
that Ziggy could be open to a hack or a virus or something like that, and do the tasks of evil people who want to do bad things, and maybe a hack into Ziggy is what causes everything to go awry.
My only thought on it being Ziggy is, could you imagine the reveal of who it was the whole time? Dun, dun, dun. And then it's a Blinky Light Unit box. So unless they have actually Deborah Pratt there as a hologram, then yeah, that'd be great. But if not, the Blinky box, I don't think would be a good reveal. I personally,
if Deborah Pratt goes into her Ziggy voice,
I was gonna say, I think it works if that's the first time we hear Ziggy speak.
Ooh, that's a good point. Ooh, I'm getting chills. That was good, John. I like that. I'm going with my older theory. I'm back on it. I was convinced that I was wrong, but I think it's Addison. And the couple reasons I have that is on the previously on that they did, the little recap at the beginning you were talking about, John, they showed
Albie,
Addison.
Who is previously on?
He'll be on next week. Previously on. He'll be on next week. But when they were showing
to discuss other shows.
No. When they were showing the previous scenes to catch the audience up, catch us up, everybody, they showed that part again where Ben said, "I know why I leaped." And there was that really long look and pause where Addison looked worried, like Ben remembered maybe too much. And they played that again. So that I think the significance I gave it the first time around, I think still has significance because they played it again. And also, after Ben leaps out of this episode, all bloody, with stitches, after he leaps out, we focus on Addison for 5 seconds, which is a long time in television, and her face changes, her emotions change, her attitude changes, like she knows something that she's not telling Ben, I think. And then a lot of through this episode, we see Addison angry at Ben, and to me that seemed almost like deflection, like she almost feels like Ben's going to remember soon, so she's trying to get angry at Ben and make it his fault when it wasn't his fault. They mentioned that this episode is great for me, for my mystery brain. Jen, I think, mentioned that Ben went to save Addison, but nobody spoke about to save her life or anything. So maybe Ben is saving Addison from being the bad person doing the bad thing that she did do somehow. I don't know. Okay, you guys go.
I will say I was not convinced at all with anything you said until until the last part where trying to save her from becoming a villain or making a horrible mistake like that. I was like, okay, well that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Albie,
yes.
As we know now, the show's been picked up for season 2. Do you know if the whole cast has signed on for it?
That I don't know. I haven't heard either way. I think that's something Matt would probably let us know if somebody's missing or not.
Well, the reason that I ask is because if one of the main crew was the big bad, and they're going to wrap it up by the end of the season probably, there's probably a good chance that they won't be back. So I was going to say, if we were to look at the cast list for season 2 once we actually get it, we might be able to figure out who it is.
I was going to ask if you think that they're going to wrap that storyline up by the end of the season, because it's still, I mean, they have enough shows to do it, but it also, they could easily extend it into the season 2.
Well, I do think that they will try and wrap up this part of it within the season, because of the fact that they set the limit of 10 to 20 leaps for Ben to be able to get to his destination.
That's a good point.
So whether or not he actually completes it or whether it gets left on a cliffhanger, I don't know. But I do think that we're at least going to get to his destination by the end of the season.
I don't know if you guys saw the interview that our colleagues at Fate's Wide Wheel did with Dean Georgenis, but he spoke to the overarching story for the season one, like what is the mystery? Why did Ben leap? And the Janis and everything to do with that will be wrapped up by the end of season one. And that sets the platform for season two. So I think even if one of the team or somebody that we know ends up being the big bad, I think that might propel into season two, where that person then becomes the villain of the show, maybe. So I don't think we necessarily lose them. They might just be in a different role.
Or it could just be that Ben succeeds and prevents them from becoming the villain, and then everything's good. In what I'm thinking might happen for the start of season two is, do you remember when the senator came to visit and Magic promised that they'd go back and try and save her brother? Well, I think that's probably where we're going to see the start of season two, them trying to cash the checks that, that they wrote that they shouldn't have. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We might see Ben or someone else having to leap again in order to do that, but then also them having to fight with the committees to, justify using the project.
That kind of ties into one of the other things I was thinking. When Magic, the scene between Magic and Addison in the office there, when Magic was talking about how he was a warrior too, reminded me that she has all this military secret intelligence background. And part of me thought, wow, maybe she's working for the United States government in a capacity to change things for them. And that might be the whole, what she's doing wrong, in Ben's eyes or other people's at the project eyes, because she is a military person. That might be like a double agent, even though they're both United States agencies, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, when early in the episode, I think when they're all talking about it in the office, I think it's Magic who says something to the effect of Ben's note to Addison said, "This is bigger than all of us." He didn't go into detail, obviously, but this is bigger than all of us.
What could
which
be
makes
bigger?
me think, well, it makes me think that there's some terrible tragedy, and Addison is one of the victims of that tragedy.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And I'd forgotten about until you mentioned it, Hayden, I'd forgotten about the alternate, I don't call them the evil Leaper, say the government
Leaper X.
Yeah, Leaper X.
I had forgotten about Leaper X. So, I could easily see the government trying to, I don't know, go back and do the classic kill Hitler or something. And the project is like, no, that's not how this works. You can't do that. There's too many ripples, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that Leaper X does causes a timeline where there's no Addison even, or something. And that's what he means by he's trying to save her. He's trying to unexist her.
Literally save her.
Well,
so she doesn't get deleted. Yeah. How does that factor in with him trying to get to the future, Ben trying to get to the future? That part I can't understand out of any of this.
If the leap that occurs in the future, if Leaper X doesn't go back until, I don't know, 2050 or something.
Okay.
Or something, whatever. Like,
future.
Timey-wimey. They can make it work.
One thing that struck me was this episode has a song called Traveling On. And part of the lyrics in this song are about making my way back home. So do you think Ben will actually get home at some point? Do you think they're telling us that, or you think it's just him longing to be back home? But I love the parallels between Carly Farmer and Ben throughout this whole episode. So the fellow travelers, I think, are Ben and Carly, right? So that song, I just love that song. And I want to go to Jamie Jackson's interview where we learn all about the song. But first, Hayden, don't we have some bills to pay?
Yeah, we do. You might remember during our last after show, we were talking about how you can order your canned cakes over the phone as well as online. Well, it turns out the phone lines have been ringing off the hook. So you can now call the CanPakes hotline, 707-847-6682. You can get brand new CanPake recipes and lots of other ideas of things that you can do with your CanPakes. And if you have any CanPake related inquiries or difficulties that you want taken care of, one of our operators will be happy to assist you however they can. And your CanPakes will never be more delicious.
That's awesome. It's kind of like the Butterball hotline where you can call up and they help you cook your turkeys. So they'll help you eat your CanPakes and warm them up or have them any way you want. That's cool that they have technical support now. That phone number should be on the screen right now. It's 707-847-6682. And that's the United States number. So if you're outside the United States, remember to add the +1. And give them a call, leave them a message, and or talk to somebody that could help you, depending on, I guess, the time and the place. Thank you very much, Hayden. So that's CanPakes. Call that number. So now we have an interview with the composer of the song that's the main song for this episode, and I think the main song of this season. And who knows, it could be one of those songs that sticks around for the whole series because I love it. But this is our interview that Matt and I did with Jamie Jackson.
Hey, this is the Quantum Leap podcast, and tonight on the show, we're really excited to have a special guest with us. We have Jamie Jackson, who wrote the song Travelling On from the latest episode, Fellow Travellers. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We're definitely going to want to talk about the song and the background behind that and your experiences on the show. But perhaps first you could give us a little bit of background and talk us through your career so far and what have been the highlights and what's got you to this point writing songs for TV.
Yeah, well, my husband and I are partners, and we were making records as singer-songwriters. And a lot of the songs were being licensed for film and TV. So, when you hear a popular song in the background that isn't score, we call them needle drops. We were getting a lot of those. And there was a creator on a show called Scrubs, Bill Lawrence. He had placed a lot of our music on that series, and he had an upcoming series. And he was looking for a composer. And so he had us audition. And we auditioned together. And they gave about 10 composers a shot. And they gave us all numbers. So that nobody, people had their friends or people they'd worked with in the past. They just wanted it to be completely unbiased selection. And we ended up, that's how we got our first job, composing for TV and film. And so we've done that for 12 years now. And then in between projects, we'll write songs and make albums as singer-songwriters and produce other songwriters. And we get hired to do songs for series like Quantum Leap.
So, so I didn't realize you did a bit of both because I kind of, during research for this, I went back as far as I could and I found your work as Hot as Sun, and that seemed to also be TV and film music as opposed to something that you'd done yourself that had then been licensed. Was that right? Or have I got that the wrong way around?
No, it's the other way around. Hot as Sun is an electronic project that started on hiatus from the first television series we did. I just wanted to have some fun and make music for no reason. And it ended up getting picked up by some local radio stations, and we got signed by a label in Canada. And so I was doing that part-time.
Okay. Yeah, no, I listened to the album and it's some great music. It's just, as I was searching for the songs, I kept finding them popping up in TV shows. So I kind of figured it was the other way around. Yeah. Interesting. Great. Yeah. So how would you describe the kind of differences between getting an assignment for TV and working to, I don't know what kind of spec they give you. I guess they give you the storylines, the characters, whatever, versus just being able to do something where you're looking more internally or from your own experience.
Yeah, when I'm writing and recording a song for a series or a film, I'm telling someone else's story and I'm helping realize someone else's vision. And Dean is great to work with that way, because when I worked with Dean on Bluff City Law, I don't know if you saw that series that he created, but we did the score for that, but we also wrote some songs. And Dean really invites you into his world when you're working with him and gives you full access. And it's really invigorating because, with Quantum Leap, I got a text from him on a Sunday saying, "Hey, would you be interested in writing a song? We're going to leap into the 70s. We've got 2 weeks to complete it," which means I have about 5 days to write it, send out the first draft. And they called me from the writer's room. So as they were writing the episode, I was also writing the song. And he invites you right in, a lot of showrunners and executive producers don't do that, but he makes the time. And then that helps your instincts to hopefully get it quick. So we got it on the first try because Dean was so welcoming. They were on their 9th episode. They're a well-oiled ship. I'm just jumping in. I don't know the other writers and producers, and I didn't have time to learn their language, their taste. And so there was just an open communication with Dean and the writers, and, they were still casting it. They, in the middle of the process of writing the song, we actually did a time leap in the process and we went from 1970 to 1979 / early 80s and went less. The first idea was to go more country pop, and we went more rock pop. And so it's a very fast and furious process because, you have to have the pre-records and have everything ready for them to record live, have all the musicians lined up. And, but it's always fun with Dean because, again, he really invites you into his world, but he lets you do your job. He's good at conveying the emotional arc and what he's going for and what story we need to tell, and also what songs and energy was inspiring to him. So that really, it's very different working that way versus me just going into my studio and going, what am I feeling? Let me just let it out. What do I want to say? So that's how it's really different.
Is there a lot of pressure when you're writing a song for an episode like this? Like when I first watched the episode and I heard the song, I was like, wow, this is good. How did I ever miss this? Or maybe it's original, but I feel like I've heard it and it's a big hit. So is it like a lot of pressure? You got to write her main song that everybody wants to hear when they come to the concert, and this has to, because the song really could make or break the episode, and it really made the episode in this case. Is that a lot of pressure to write a number one hit, even in a TV show universe?
Well, thanks for saying that. It's so much pressure. You should have seen the playlist I got from Dean and the writer Drew. They were like, these are the songs and the vibe that we like. And it was, all of my heroes, all of the greatest songs ever written. And so, yeah, I felt a lot of pressure from that angle, because as a musician, you're always striving to hit, get that hit song. And, but it was helpful that it was just so fast. I had to go with my first instinct. And as I was saying, it shifted. We started with 1970 more country pop inspiration. So we're thinking like Dolly Parton, we're thinking Linda Ronstadt, Nancy Sinatra. So we were leaning more in that direction. And I had about 24 hours in the studio, and I was circling in on a chorus and some lyrics for the verse, because you're also writing lyrics coming that have to mean something, that have to support the emotional arc and the storyline between Carly and her sister. And then it also ties in with Ben and Addison and the whole thing. So, and I was a little stuck, midway through, which always usually happens at some point. And I get a text from Dean, and he's like, "I'm so sorry, Jamie, but we're changing the whole scenario of the song. Like, it was going to be an awards ceremony. Now it's just going to be a performance. Now we want to do 1979, 1980. We want to go more rock." And I was like, "No, it's all good. It's all good." And then that just kind of broke it down for me. I sat down and I wrote it immediately. It just fell out. So the work that we had done in preparation for the other direction just prepped us. And I will say, I co-write a lot with this woman named Jamie Drake. I'm Jamie Jackson. She's Jamie Drake. And I knew that I wanted her to sing on this and be a part of it, because I'm a composer. I'm at home. I've been at home with my kid through the pandemic working, and she's been out still touring, and she really had the spirit of Carly in my mind. And Dean has heard a few songs that Jamie and I have done together. So I brought her in as the vocalist, and we'll get in the room. And so she was part of the writing as well. Again, I just have to attribute it to Dean allowing us into his world and making himself available, and Drew Lindo, who wrote the episode as well, because we were able to. We didn't get really any notes. We're like, that's it, the first try, and it doesn't happen very often, That
obviously speaks to the collaboration that you had up front. Yeah. Not to retrospectively add even more pressure, but you mentioned about the putting the lyrics to the storyline that's going on between Ben and Addison, the storyline that's going on between Carly and her sister. A lot of the lyrics also seem to link to the overall story arc, not just what's going on in that episode, just the whole concept of traveling through time.
Yeah.
And any pressure there as well, just feeling like you're effectively creating what I'm guessing is going to be the song of the season. I assume that there's not going to be any more coming up. So this is the song that's going to represent what we're watching right now as a whole show.
That's exciting. I mean, I have to give that to Dean, because he, I loved that he came to me and he was like, the theme is traveler, and I'm like, yeah, that's really brilliant. He conceptually had, let me tie this all together. So that was under the guidance of Dean, honestly, who, also, it's always a treasure working with creators that make you better at what you do. And he's definitely one of them.
One of the popular things in the Quantum Leap fan community is the soundtrack that came out for the original series. Is there any talk of a soundtrack for the new series eventually, or was there any talk about putting this on an album one day, or releasing it like that, like in the contracts and the paperwork? Like, is that allowed for already, or is that something that
we want to hear this song without the damn actors talking over it?
Yes.
That's effectively where you're going with this, Albie, right? Yes,
we want to hear that song.
Yeah, you know what? I did bring it up on set because I was like, the soundtrack is so great and the score is awesome. And I did drop a hint to Dean and Drew. I was like, y'all should really consider doing a soundtrack and releasing it. I think the fans would love it.
I think in the original series, there were 3 times that there was specially composed tracks for the show, and each time Scott Bakula got the opportunity to just sing the songs and everything else stopped And so even before the CDs came out, we got the chance to hear the songs. So I joke about the damn actors talking over them, but honestly, this song sort of becomes background music for a bit and then comes back again. So I think there's some unique value in actually getting this out as a song. We're jumping ahead of ourselves, but I think Albie and
I grew up watching the show, so it's a real thrill to be a part of the reboot.
In a world where a soundtrack does come out, are there demo versions recorded of like the former versions of the song, like the country Dolly-esque songs of this song? Or could there be?
Well, the funny thing is that when we were writing the kind of Dolly version, it was completely different melody, but it had some of the key phrases that ended up just forming. It just came together. It was like, okay, it clicked. This is where it was supposed to go, but I will say tonally, the acoustic broken down version that the sisters sing at the end, it was leaning more in that direction. So you do get to hear a little bit of how the song sounded in the other genre.
Do you work with the person composing the score for the episode, or is it you work separate and it's just hope that it works together at the end? How does that work?
Yeah, we worked separately. I've never met the composer. So, the producers just do a great job of keeping everything fluid, with their direction. I will say that one of the cool things about the song is the musicians that played on the track are actually on stage playing. We brought in a different pianist because I wanted to be able to watch and make sure everything was going all right instead of being on stage. So we brought in a pianist, but the guitarist, the bass player, the drummer, they all played on the track. And I was like, Dean, can we please just hire them? Because then we know it's going to look great. Sometimes those on camera performances can be wobbly because the song comes together at such, the last minute and people don't have time to rehearse, or maybe it's an actor that doesn't even know how to play the instrument. But Dean was very open to that and connected me with the casting director. And so 3 of the musicians did play on the track are actually on camera. And then Deborah Ann Wall was brilliant. I mean, that's not her voice. Right?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Usually I can tell.
Wondering.
Usually I can tell, but I really thought it was her.
Yeah. She was amazing. She blew us all away. She was really great. And then the sister that, it's Carly and Jamie are the characters' names, and they were both really wonderful.
Can you just because we've kind of jumped around a little bit, and Albie was asking about the demo, and you're talking about how the recording matched up with what was on stage. Can you just sort of walk us through the process of how these things go from just being in your head to being on screen?
Well, this process, it was so fast. The demo vocals are the vocals that we're using. And
that was that you and your partner Jamie?
Yes. Her name is Jamie Drake. And we felt like normally I would just send a acoustic version and not put a whole lot of time into it because, you get notes and you need to redo things and we don't have a lot of time. But, I just felt like we need to sell it. We need to sell it needs to feel electric. And, the first thing they said, who's singing? Who is that? It's amazing, And so they ended up wanting to keep her vocals. And what we did was, the only thing I didn't record live for the demo were the drums. So once it got approved and they said, can you make it a little bit longer? We lengthened it. We sent it to a drummer, because literally we had no time. And sent it off to a drummer who I was on Zoom, and we were just, talked through the direction. And then we added more background vocals and things because, there's background vocalist. So, and then once we nailed the full band version, they asked for a broken down version. And the first version of it was a little darker. And so they asked us to lighten it up just to give it a little bit more hope. And we did that. But we kept all the demo vocals.
So all bringing in the extra tracks and bringing in the backing and bringing in the drumming, were you overseeing all of that, effectively providing them with a polished piece to use in the episode?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I produced it, and then I went on set just to make sure everything looked great. And we have a person that plays back the track, and all the musicians have, in-ears. And, just want to make sure that mainly that Deborah, who is playing Carly, is comfortable and good to go, because she's it.
What was the collaboration like between you and Deborah? I'm sure the director worked with her, and she had her own ideas about the character and the song. But what kind of conversations did you have with her about this song and the interaction between you two?
The interaction was not a lot. Just, I'm here for you. She loved the song, and the first time she ran it, we were just, it was a holy shit moment. She's amazing. We're good. So yeah, very little interaction. I think her and Dean really connected a lot. Because again, it was fast. We didn't even know who the singer was going to be until the song was written. So there was always that chance that the song was going to have to change depending on who they cast. So we got lucky that it all just kind of melded together and worked out. Walking onto the set was incredible because you felt like it was 1979 at a concert. There was the merch booth with albums made and t-shirts made and posters. And it was such a short amount of time. It was wild.
Did you get to keep any mementos from that, like an album cover or a poster or something like that?
I think Dean took a few.
Oh, awesome.
I think Dean saved one for me.
Oh, nice. Very nice. You earned it.
Thank you.
How does the experience you've just talked about, how does that compare to other shows that you've worked on? Are you used to getting to go on set and be supportive, or are you usually more working in the background?
It's both. It's been almost 3 or 4 years since I've been on a set because of the pandemic. I just happened to not work on a show that didn't have any on cameras right before the pandemic. And then the pandemic happened and everything I worked on was virtual, even mixing episodes. So I was so excited. I felt renewed being on set, and, just a reminder of how magical the process is and how many people it takes, and being on a team. It was very inspiring. Again, Dean is special because he really does let you do your job, And so I think that's why the show is running so well and it's doing so well. You know, he's got a clear vision, and then he supports everyone. I mean, when I was chatting with the writer he was working with, we were sharing stories, like similar stories, on how great it is to work with him, because you really get to do your job, and it's inspiring and exciting, and he's excited. You know, he's an inspired creative leader. And so that's, believe it or not, that's rare in this business, you know. So
I have like a nerdy question, like multi-part. What kind of software do you use to record and edit your music for TV shows? And like when you send it off to the producers or whoever you send it to, do you send just the mixed down version, or do you got to send individual tracks in case they need them for different things? How does that all work? Because we don't know. So.
Oh yeah, I use a program called Logic. A lot of singers, songwriters, and producers tend to use Logic because it's simple but very creative. A lot of the more technical sound engineers prefer to use Pro Tools, but I can use both. I just enjoy Logic. When I'm bouncing a song for producers to listen to and hopefully sign off on or give notes, I want it to be easy to download. I know they might be in their car or, you know, on vacation or on a plane. And so I bounce usually an MP3 that's, you know, a smaller file, just so that I know I don't get a call like, I can't listen to this, I can't download it. So I'll usually email an MP3 to them. And then once everything is approved, so I didn't finish having the song mixed until they had it edited, you know, in the episode, in case there were any notes like, can you get rid of this symbol, or can you turn this up, or can you change this background vocal? So it kind of held, and I didn't hear anything. And then I hear from the music editor who's on the show, and he's like, all right, we're ready to go. We're going to be mixing in 2 weeks. And I just send him over stems. So I group like the drums, and I bounce the drums, and I bounce, you know, bass and guitar, so that as they're mixing on stage, they have control of the mix. And then I removed like reverb from the vocals, so that, you know, they will have created a reverb in that theater in the show, so it's all consistent. Yeah, and they take it from there and they mix it, and that's it.
Thank you. That's interesting.
Yeah. Thanks for asking those questions. It's fun to talk about that stuff too.
I wanted to compliment you on the song. I know it'll be on my playlist, you know, for decades to come, like music from the original series. I think it really fits in really good with this new series and the overall Quantum Leap universe and the time it was supposed to be in. I love it. So thank you for it.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much to me. Thanks.
Yeah, the fans are going to love it. It immediately. I had a very similar response to Albie when I was first watching it. That it came on, and I thought this is obviously an original song from the 70s that I just can't quite place. Mm-hmm. And as I started to realize that it wasn't, and it was specially commissioned for the show, I don't know. I know Dean said this 109 just followed straight on in production from 108. They didn't have a hiatus, but it really felt like, oh, we're back after a break, and this is something big and special. And that song coming 2-3 minutes into the episode really helped sell that kind of welcome back to the universe.
That's great, because I know that's what they were really aiming for that. So that's great to hear.
So yeah, it's been great to talk to you about everything you've done so far. And I know Albie and I have learned a lot about the whole production process, which has been fascinating. Can you tell us what's coming next for you, where the listeners can find your current work, anything else you'd like to point us towards, really?
Yeah. My husband and I are working on a new series for Apple right now. It's called Bad Monkey. We're doing that series with Bill Lawrence, who's created Scrubs and produced Ted Lasso, and he's been on a bunch of things you may have seen. And I also just released a single with my indie. It's a little bit more rock and roll, called It Was Bananas. And you can hear that. It's hottestsun.com. And my husband and I have a composer website, WAZ-Jackson. And we usually post about all the projects that we're working on. And also, I'll plug Jamie Drake. She's an amazing singer-songwriter as well. You can find her on Spotify and Apple just under Jamie Drake, D-R-A-K-E.
Thank you once again for your time. This has been a really fascinating interview. And hopefully we'll hear more from you soon.
Yes.
Thanks for your time.
Much. It was a pleasure.
And we're back. What about that interview? Wasn't she awesome? Man, so talented. And that time crunch where she had to get it all done and then they changed the time period at the last minute. It was awesome to get to talk to her, and I just love that song. I hope they release it. If not on vinyl or CD, but even on iTunes to where I can download it and buy it or something, add it to my playlist. That'd be great.
We need to get a Quantum Leap Spotify playlist, I think.
That's good. I like the song a lot too, and like the old series, they're using songs a lot. I can't remember if it was the last episode or the episode prior, but Somewhere Beyond the Sea, they kept playing, and that's also a song about a traveler who can't get home, who wants to get home.
Wow. That was a Halloween episode.
On this long journey.
Mm-hmm.
That was a Halloween episode, right? Mm-hmm. When he remembered everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that's going to be a consistent thing. And to answer your question, I don't know if he's going to get home. I mean, obviously when he gets home, presumably that's the end of the show unless somebody else jumps in the accelerator. I want him to have his happy ending, but I want him lost in the void for at least 4 seasons.
Right? Yeah. We don't want him home too soon because then we won't have our show, presumably.
Well, with how adamant they seem to be, we are going to bring Ben home. We're not going to let the same thing happen to Ben that happened to Sam. Mm-hmm. Seeing how much they're trying to drill that in, it seems pretty clear that they are going to bring Ben home. I don't have any doubts that it's going to happen. I'll be interested to see if they prove me wrong, but I can't see them not bringing him home when they try and drill it in as much as they have.
So would you want to see a show where they do have control, it works as intended? They have control over the leaps. Somebody goes in, they leap to do a thing, and then they come back, and it's just like a job. It's like a workplace. It's and there's not the element of they're lost. Would that still be Quantum Leap? Would you still want to see that?
That would eliminate a lot of the suspense and a lot of the premise of the show, I think. Then you would be more like Timeless or 7 Days, where they can come and go as they please. And it's just less important, maybe, in my opinion. So I think that's one of the reasons why Quantum Leap got renewed for season 2, and it got renewed quite earlier than other things normally would get renewed for new seasons. And part of it, I thought, is to give the creators time to either A, if it was only going to be 1 season, to wrap it up and bring Ben home, or B, let them know you got a season 2, so you don't have to bring them home yet while they're still in production. That was my thought.
I should point out as well, I did say they're going to bring him home. I didn't say he was going to stay home. So I think that they will have him home by the end of the season, but then he'll have to leap again for whatever reason, maybe to get the Senators off his back or something.
And when he comes back, he remembers everything, and he remembers that he's married to Donna, and that's why Addison has been so upset with him the whole time.
Yeah.
That would be
I wonder what happened to Donna.
I do wonder what happened to Donna. Hopefully we get to see her again. Hopefully she's played by Terry Hatcher. That'd be
Terry
great.
Hatcher.
That'd be a good get, right? They could make it work. These writers are good. These writers are good.
Yeah.
But I think there would need to be some real big reason why they would need to bring her back, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Like, Beth makes perfect sense because she's the connection to Al and Janis, whereas, with no Sam in the show, there's not really any connection to Donna. So there needs to be some sort of a big reason. Maybe they do spot Sam somewhere along the way and need to get more info or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a headcanon of why they would need to bring her back.
When Janis said, "Mom says hi," did you think anything of that? To me, that was like intimating almost that Beth and Magic have more of a relationship than we're led to believe, at least a past.
I didn't think about that, but that tracks. I can see that.
I interpreted it more that she's just saying, "Yeah, I know that you and my mum were in cahoots. You worked together to make sure that I wasn't going to end up here." So,
okay,
I don't know if that necessarily means that Magic and Beth had anything on the side going on, but they definitely worked together to stop Janis from being on the project.
That makes
I read
a
it
lot
the
more
same
sense.
way. Yeah, I read it the same way Hayden read it, but I like yours too. I like yours too.
Me, I'm always trying to hook people up, I think. I don't know. The hopeless romantic in me.
I love triangle between Magic, Beth, and Donna.
There you go. I'm up for it, man. I will watch that. One thing, speaking of Beth, I noticed in the going back again to the scene in Belize with Jen and Janis, when Janis was sitting at that table drinking from the beer bottle, I had feels and instant flashbacks to MIA when Beth was drinking from the beer bottle. If you remember, like the angles, the shots, just the whole everything seemed almost like a mirror of when we first met Beth in MIA.
I didn't think of it, but yeah.
Yeah, and I do like the fact that Jen pointed out, yeah, I'm not drinking anything that you give me. You drugged your own mother. So,
family's complicated.
Yeah. Well, Jen would know.
Yeah, I think Jen and Janis are going to end up being like a really good team to help whatever's going on. So, because I really got from this episode that Jen is totally not the bad guy and totally going to be on board for helping Ben. So,
I was just going to say too, it seems that Janis and Jen do also have very similar sort of skills, so they might work well together.
I'm really interested to see the new dynamic when Janis is able to help with Project Quantum Leap. So let's talk about the leap a little bit. This was a pretty cool leap. April 24th, 1979. I was about 3, I think. And
same.
It's about what I remember. Like
-7.
-7.
I was 4.
Wait, what year did you say?
4.5.
April 24th, 1979. I hadn't had my birthday yet, so I was almost 4. I was almost 4.
Yeah, I would have been -7.
But I wasn't in Chicago at the time, so I wasn't in this episode. So, what did you think about the whole leap? Let's talk about the leap story. I thought it was like a classic, like Quantum Leap, what he needed to do and leap in and get it done, and all the other things. And just John, what do you think about the leap back to 1979?
I agree. It was classic leap. Get in, help people make their connections. There's a degree of forgiveness. There's a degree of opening your heart. Everyone's grown a little bit. There's a love story. I'll wrap it up nicely. I was surprised they didn't take Ben to the hospital. He's like, no, it's fine. I was just stabbed. And Addison's like, oh, okay, you're going to be okay. And I'm guessing because she's got training and she saw the blood is the right color or something. I'm headcanoning all of this.
That's the exact thought I had. It was like a light red, not a dark red. So she knew he was going to be okay. But
still, why would you not? Well, I mean,
yeah,
that's fine. He doesn't want to leave her side. I get it. But I was like, okay, well, after the show, let's go. Let's take a little run an errand.
Yeah, after the concert, then go to the emergency room, I guess. But he's still got to be there to protect her. So
part of it too might be that they kind of knew that Ben was about to leap, so no point
Hmm.
going to the hospital when he's just going to, recuperate, in limbo until he lands in the next spot. So.
But what about
Like, it's
Jack
like-
Armstrong?
I was thinking that he's got to wake up like, what?
I got stabbed and I don't remember.
What do you mean? No one took me to the hospital. Why would
Why
I
am I not
not go
at the hospital?
Yeah. Yeah,
I
actually,
like
that's
the-
a good point. I'd forgotten about the fact that the original Lee P is actually there too, isn't he? He's not in the waiting room this time. Yeah,
that's
a good
his
point.
body too. Yeah. So, I liked the whole. I've never been stabbed before. It hurts. That was good. And in that last scene, while Allison Augustine is sitting there with Ben's song and they're talking, they have that moment to talk because he's not immediately leaping and making that dramatic exit again. That shot, I don't know who composes the shots. Is it the director of photography? But where it starts on the stage and then it spins around slowly to reveal Ben and Addison and their conversation. I just thought that was beautiful. The other scene I really liked is when Trevor was crinkling up that piece of paper and threw it in the wastebasket, and then they panned up to Addison. I just thought that was a beautiful shot too. I mean, this show is shot in such a way that it looks like a feature film. The lighting and the shadows and just the coloring also. Man, just beautiful. The whole time I was watching this episode. I mean, back at the project, it looked good, but it's supposed to look procedural and project-like. But the actual leap, it just looked so beautiful. I was so impressed. So impressed. Like if they submit episodes for Emmy considerations for, directing or director of photography, this would be a good one. This and maybe the boxing episode, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the boxing was really good too.
Beautiful.
I was going to say, first of all, Ben is getting much better at being a leaper. Like we've commented in some previous episodes, it seemed like he hadn't got it through his head that he's not supposed to be talking to himself, really. Everyone will think he's nuts. But in this one, he immediately thought, oh, yeah, if I put my hand up there, they'll think I'm talking into a walkie-talkie,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's starting to really get into his stride as a leaper, I think. It tried to bring in some time travel elements that I liked as well. The fact that they were, as soon as Ben saved, what was her name, Carly, straight away Ziggy would say, oh, now she dies here, so she must have been murdered. Oh, now she dies here, it can't have been Trevor, that sort of thing. So I do like the fact that they were using some of the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey elements to help get through the mystery. Even though I don't necessarily agree with it, I think that it's one of those things that, things don't really change until you do something to change it, but then stuff actually has to happen so that you've got a record of it. I don't think that Ziggy would immediately pick up on the new timeline because shouldn't there need to be a little bit of time taking place to actually get some of those events in order?
Well, it's been 45 years, so that's a lot of time in between for it to take effect.
Yeah,
I think it follows the rules
I'm
of quantum leap time
talking about
travel.
sort of. Yeah, I don't know. I don't agree with those time travel rules. But then again, didn't Quantum Leap break all the rules of time travel? That's what they said right at the very start of the series, didn't they?
That didn't bump me at all, and I really liked what they did with that in that little running joke about how I think it was like the final time that Ben found out from Addison that Carly Farmer was going to die again, and he looked at her and he was like, he should have said like, what the. But what did he say? Something like that.
It's like if you tell me that she's gonna die again.
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah.
And then she did that thing playing with him.
I love the look that Addison had on her face, and she's like, "Nah, just kidding."
That was great. I mean, it really paid off the running joke of okay, she dies again, she dies again, she dies again. It was perfect. Is a really great way to end the episode, I think. But that was funny. I laughed out loud.
You said that Ben he's like really getting the hang of it, and I agree. And I think part of it, and I put this in my notes, like I appreciate that his knowledge is cumulative. Like he doesn't forget, he doesn't get Swiss cheese, like or since the initial leap, he doesn't seem to be.
The initial, yeah.
So he remembers previous leaps. And over the course of this episode, in the original series, for the most part, Sam was always Sam and Al was always Al. Like, they didn't change. Like, their characters didn't change. But it seems like Ben is getting like character development. Like, because he makes this choice, like, you know what, from here on out, I'm not keeping anything from you. Like, no matter what, we'll face it together. And that is a different choice than the Ben who leapt made. So he's actually changing as a person, which is, I appreciate it. I don't think there's anything that I missed from the first episode, or the first series. But I like that element of it.
It kind of sets this particular series of Quantum Leap apart from the first one, because this series you really can't watch, or not as easily, out of order. Like, you can't just pick a particular episode and have it be standalone with this cumulative knowledge. And they keep referring back to previous leaps as well. Like, I think it was Addison who said, "Oh, you remember the damsel in distress who turned out to be the mob boss?" So it does seem like, even the leaps are going to be a serialized sort of series, as opposed to the anthology that we had in the original.
That's a good point.
Which I think is okay, because now the way people watch television is they either watch it when it's on, or they binge it later when they stream it, and they're going to be watching it in order. But it also has the rewatchability of an episode. It's not like when I watch Deep Space Nine, for example. Most of the time, I know if I'm going to watch Deep Space Nine, I'm going to watch Deep Space Nine for the next month and a half, because I'm going to watch the whole thing. I'm not going to pick an episode here and there, except a few of them. But this series, the new Quantum Leap series, I think, like, I will definitely go back and watch the 1979 Singer episode. I will definitely go back and watch this episode and just enjoy that story, because there's not too much of there is, mystery in the whole overarching story, but it's more of just an episode of Quantum Leap. And so I think you can watch these out of order and enjoy them as long as you've seen them already. So, and they don't have to worry about syndication, really, because I don't think that's as much of a thing as it used to be, at least the importance of it. You don't need that reset button anymore. And I think that's a good advantage for this show, is that they can build on every character as they go along. You were speaking about Tammy Jean in the A Decent Proposal episode, Hayden, and I found it interesting that they flashed back to that episode for a few seconds when Addison was talking about it, which makes me think it's important, because how often in television do they put something in there and it doesn't mean something? So they're reminding us of what happened. Maybe so if something in the future happens that I have no idea what in the next few episodes, that's part of it. So that got me thinking about the whole modern $100 bill in Tammy Jean's suitcase, the one from the future. So I checked with a friend of mine, and they said that wasn't intentional. That wasn't like an Easter egg. That wasn't part of the mystery. It was just an oversight. So I'm a little disappointed in that. But it's just weird that they flash back to that episode.
Well, especially because they're going to have to pay that actress royalties for 2 episodes now.
Yeah, it's not an inconsequential decision. I mean, I think it was intentional for a reason, and that just leads me to why. Bigger mystery. Was there a leaper inside Tammy Jean all that time? I don't know.
It could be that, or since this is, this episode in particular is coming back after a break. Maybe, hey, have you seen the new Quantum Leap series? No, I haven't checked it out yet. Oh, it's really good. You should start watching. By the way, hey, you remember that time we did that other cool show, that other cool episode? You should watch that one too. If people are coming in fresh with this episode, that's kind of it's a callback for people who've seen it, and it might be intriguing for someone who hasn't.
That always reminds me of the second episode of the animated Clerk series. Have you ever seen that?
I think maybe 100 years ago. I'm sorry.
The second episode of animated Clerk series is a clip show of the first episode. So all their memories took place in the previous episode. It's very funny. It's nice. Worth a rewatch if you haven't seen it, or it's pretty good. The other thing that we were talking about is how Ben was talking to Addison. And I think a lot of the beauty of the writing of this episode that I really, really appreciated, the old series did it as well, where Sam would figure out how to have a conversation with 2 people at once, where Sam would have a conversation with Al, but also make it make sense to people around him that didn't see Al. In this, they use that same kind of technique, but to greater effect, I think, because, of course, everybody loves everybody. Trevor loves Carly. Carly loves Jack. Loretta loves Trevor. But yeah,
everybody loves Raymond.
Everybody loves Raymond, of course.
Everybody hates Chris.
The director of photography. So, but they used it so well because Ben was expressing his emotions and his thoughts, his apologies, and just everything to Addison. And Addison, and we as the audience saw that he was talking to Addison, but it totally made sense for everything Jack was saying to Carly. And I just thought that was brilliant. Like,
yeah,
perfect.
That was really well shot because he was almost looking over Carly's shoulder to Addison, but not quite. So not so much that it was like the way they held the camera on him. That was really good. I agree. Good job.
And that double talk is incredibly difficult to write. I remember sometimes when we were doing skits in the Quantum Leap podcast, and every now and then I'd have to write some of that double talk, and it did my head in. So big props to the writers for being able to do that.
Yeah, it totally worked. And the one awkward part was meant to be awkward when I think they were in the bar and Ben was responding to Addison, but it had nothing to do with Carly. And Carly was like, come again. And she was just sitting there waiting there for like 10 seconds, like looking at him. And I just wanted to see that like from her perspective. You know, he just says something random and she's like, what? That was interesting. Speaking of the bar, it looked like to me, it looked like a redress of the closed restaurant from the repilot. If you remember that set, it looked a little bit like that.
Yeah.
And we saw our favorite alley in this episode again. I think this alley is in every episode. I think they're going to do like a episode in Iowa somewhere, and there'll be one scene in that alley for some reason. You know, cornfields the whole time, and then that alley. But I love it. Like, I can't wait to go there, like on a tour, you know, or visiting the set, and just get my picture in like every angle of that alley. It's
like
call it Albie's Alley.
Albie's Alley. There you go, Albie's Alley. But the backlot stuff of this series really is such a positive for me because it makes me feel like the original Quantum Leap did the same thing all the time. So just to have all those same areas just dressed different, it gives me that feeling. Like almost I would miss that part of the feeling. It's almost like a feeling of home for the original series. And I would miss that if they were on location all the time and had a huge budget and they didn't need to reuse the same sets over and over again, you know? To me, I see that as a plus.
What do you think of Jan called out Al's wardrobe?
That was cool, right?
It was good. I was like, that was unnecessary. Like he was.
I loved the mention of Al and his wardrobe, but questionable wardrobe. I mean, come on, he was fabulous, right?
So I mean, that's fair, but it kind of pulls at the thread of. Okay, so because I guess I was working under the headcanon that this is an alternate 2022.
Really?
But in
I never thought that.
A little, because in Al's timeline, that's how people from the future dress. Like everybody dressed like that. Not that he was especially eccentric, but like, you know, neon clothes were just the thing.
Well, I do agree with you there, John. And remember, because I think most of us have read the novels, Al remembers all the timelines, so he's not really going to care about trying to keep, you know,
keep up with fashion,
trying to keep in the current fashions, because he knows that as the job goes on, he's probably just going to have to change his fashion anyway. He's like, stuff it, I'll just do what I like.
So maybe he just passed through a future where neon clothes were the thing. He's like, you know what, I'm keeping this. This is my thing now. I love it.
When he went shopping, that's how the reality was. And then, of course, his closet's like Project Quantum Leap, so it didn't change when the timelines changed. But I think you're right, John. I think originally the idea was everybody in the future dressed like that, because if you remember in the opening scene of the first series, you know, the LED earrings for the lady he was picking up with Deborah Pratt's voice. Tina, yeah. So everybody kind of dressed like that, I think. But now it's just, since that time has come and passed, and We really didn't dress like that except at Quantum Leap conventions.
I wonder. We know that Jean-Pierre Dorliac's pretty pissed off with the Quantum Leap at the moment. Do you think they might have put that line in there as a backhand
as a dig
message
to Jean-Pierre
to him? Yeah.
I would hope not. It would work as that. I don't know. How long ago was that? Like 3 months ago? When did that happen?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I did not think that. I just thought she used the word questionable. I would have liked to see Janis go questionable. He was a fashion god,
So it feels like we're probably like wrapping up. I've got a couple of like, I guess, questions. Or one
Okay.
question, one comment. So you mentioned like her hitting mute on the hand link, and I wanted to ask about that. Like, you're saying that like they're trying to call her, and so she muted the call. I thought that it was she muted the hand link so that they couldn't hear her conversation with Ben. But I don't know. I don't know why she would do that. So that's more of a question.
Either one of those things would work.
Think?
What did you see it as?
It might have been that. Well, it might have been that she didn't want the project to hear her telling Ben off. So.
Yeah, I mean that's fine.
Because she might have thought to herself, I don't know where this is going to go, but if it goes south, I don't want anyone hearing it.
That's true. Like if he remembers, oh, wow. If he remembers and says, I know what you did, she doesn't want the project to hear about it. Wow.
Oh, I didn't think about that at all. You're like working with the Addison as villainous. That's a whole other level to it. I didn't think about.
I'm getting all kinds of chills. Yeah, because like when you mute your phone, that means the other person can't hear you. So you're right, John. Mm-hmm. I was wrong. I thought she was like muting them trying to contact her, but you're so right. And that adds to my crazy theory that it's Addison.
All right. Well, I
did
did not mean to.
Wow.
I did not mean to bolster your theory, but it does absolutely bolster your theory.
Wow. Wow.
The other thing, and actually I meant to write this in on like the second episode of the Quantum Leap podcast, but I just never like get around to it. So back when he really didn't remember much of anything, he was still making pop culture references to like movies and stuff from our time. So the implication there is that pop culture references are like muscle memory, and they're so ingrained in him that he can remember he can remember what Legally Blonde is, even if he doesn't really remember what Legally Blonde is. He can still make those references. That's it. I like that idea. I like that. I find that comforting. that pop culture is not just a thing that you do; it's a thing that you are.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, John, because I have a theory from the original series, and it seems to be flowing a little bit into this one as well, that there are certain things that GTF Dubs doesn't want the Leaper to remember. So if, like, for example, the fact that Sam had a wife waiting for him, and the fact that of all the things that Sam ended up remembering over the rest of his time leaping that we saw, that was the one thing that he never remembered and never made any effort to try and get back to. So maybe GTF Dubs realized, no, you shouldn't have changed that particular thing, so I'm not going to let you profit from your wrongdoing, and you're not going to deviate from your not chosen, but you're not going to deviate from the path that you're supposed to be on just because you had an act of selfishness. Maybe there's something similar going on in this series. Maybe GTF Dubs didn't want Ben remembering Addison right at the start, especially if there is some nefarious thing going on. I don't know what it is, and obviously it seems like Ben did have good intentions, but you never know. So, yeah.
I like the seeds that they're planting. I like these clues. I think they have a plan, and I can't wait to rewatch season 1 after I know everything that happened and see everything I missed, and like see the clues and go, how could I miss it? It's so obvious, kind of thing, when I still have no idea what's going on, but in a good way, and I'm enjoying it. But
Yeah, I think the pacing. I hope. I suspect the pacing of the rest of the episodes for the season will be more, I guess, personally to my liking. Like I like, them trying to track down Janis. I wasn't especially interested in that because they weren't doing anything. They were trying to do the thing, but they couldn't do the thing. And now that they have Janis, I'm hoping that storyline will like kind of pick up the pace. I wasn't bored by it, but it's like watching a car warm up. Like, okay, well, I want to see it when it goes. Like that's like, I know this has to happen, but I don't need to watch it.
Yeah, I get that. The whole time while they were like trying to figure out the Janis thing and get Janis, I was thinking, well, it's just the natural progression to actually getting Janis. So every time a little bit was doled out, I was like, okay, we get a little bit more. We get a little bit more. Like in real life, it would have been, I think, tedious almost, but just knowing that they're going to get there at some point
Right.
I was very forgiving of the long wait, and the longer they hold it out, the better. And it might be a thing of they got a second half of the first season too, so where they were leading to actually doing what they're going to do with Janis. They might not have. Now this is just guessing. They might have said, "Oh, we got how many more episodes, so we got to stretch it out a little bit more, and maybe we can add a little bit to the story, and we can tweak it so it's more in detail because they have more time." So, I got to mention, I just thought of it. I know this is silly, but I got to mention Addison's outfit in this. Besides Janis's outfit was amazing, of course, but Addison's outfit, she wasn't like in a heavy leather jacket the whole time, and I always feel bad for her because I have a leather jacket and it was winter here for 2 days in Florida. So I wore it for like a day and a half. And that last day of winter, the second day, I was just getting way too hot. So I had to take it off. So I'll wear it next year, hopefully. But I just feel bad for her all the time when she's wearing that leather jacket. So she was wearing like a nice flowing, it almost looked like a jumpsuit. I don't know. But she looked amazing in that. So I hope they continue that. Less jackets, more fashion.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying, Albie, about all the seeds that are being sowed, that reminds me of what's going on with Campakes, actually. Our genetic modifiers have decided we're going to go a bit greener, and instead of having to cultivate all the ingredients and, compiling them and creating the Campakes, now you can actually buy Campake seeds and grow your own Campakes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah. I can't do that because all our competitors will want to steal the idea, but they taste exactly the same, and the packet of seeds comes with their own can, so you can grow it in the can.
Wow. So you're telling me I can grow my own Campakes?
Yes.
Wow. I really need to call this number and order some Campake seeds. The number should be on the screen. It's +1 if you're outside the United States, and then 707-847-6682. And I think those last numbers might spell something out. Maybe it spells out Campakes. Well, I don't know.
And also, don't forget that you can go onto the website and order as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the website, Albie?
Oh, yeah, you got to follow our link for us to get credit for it. We get a little bit, and that helps out the show. It's quantumleappodcast.com/Campakes, and then you click on our affiliate link, and that'll take you right to the order page. And I think you'll get 20% off your order right now. That's what's going on through the end of January. So just order those seeds and, order all their products and their beverage. And I think they're working on something like a chewing gum or something. I'm not sure. I'm sure Hayden will tell us about that next time.
Or will be revealed.
Okay. In time. Bum, bum, bum. We saw Janis, I think, more in this episode than most of the previous ones. I think she was featured more in the one with Beth, her mom. Of course, she was drugging her mom. Family's complicated. But this is when they actually bring Janis into the headquarters. And we have an interview with Georgina Reilly, which was awesome.
Yeah, look, Georgina wasn't impressed when John and I had to go and kidnap her for the interview. But I think that the ends really did justify the means here.
Well, we didn't have an extradition treaty with California, so we had to do what we had to do.
And we did provide canned cakes, which I think makes up for a lot.
Sealed the deal.
Yeah, even people under custody, under false arrest, being kidnapped deserve campings. Absolutely. So this is our interview with Georgina Reilly. Joining us now is Georgina Reilly. Georgina, welcome to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Well, I mean, we are so thrilled now. We've had every main cast member on the show, and you are our last get. You are the big bad, the main villain, and one of the few characters in the new series that's tied to legacy characters. So we're going to get into all the geeky stuff with you. But before we get too into the weeds, could you just tell us a bit about your background, how you got started in the business, and how you came to Quantum Leap?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, actually, first off, I want to acknowledge you guys for your attention to detail. I've been listening and like,
have you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have. I was wondering where Allison was. But I have, because I find, you get told about podcasts and you're like, I want to, obviously you want to know it's a professional thing. You should want to know what's going on and, where I'm going and stuff. But I really do admire your attention to detail on things that are just, it's impressive. So I'll just start with that. You can keep that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where I'm from. Well, I was born in England. I left when I was 16 after my GCSEs, which no one will understand except Matt, maybe what that is. And I moved to Canada and I finished school there. And then my family is a bunch of artists, mainly musicians. So I kind of grew up in an artistic household. So being an artist of some kind was just kind of the natural thing to do, kind of like, when you're born of lawyers and doctors and stuff. And so I just started acting. I finished high school and I called an agency and I said, I'd like an agent, please. Because I wish I had kept that sort of like just assuming it would work out like that. It did. They were like, sure. Because I think they were just so shocked at just like the directness of the question. And then just from there, I started working in Canada and, bit by bit and show by show. And I met Martin Garrow in Canada when I was 24. So like last year, and on a show. And that's kind of leap forward, like all these many moons later, that's kind of how I ended up here on Quantum Leap.
And did you know at the point that that you auditioned for Quantum Leap that this was going to be a recurring role? What awareness did you have of this?
Actually, Martin called me. I didn't have any information. I didn't know what the character was. Martin gave me a call the pilot already happened and obviously they were reshooting the pilot. And Martin called and said, hey, like, how are you? Well, I got an email saying there's interest in you for a guest star on Quantum Leap. And I was like, oh, cool. And right now I have a almost 5-year-old and I've really been trying to stay in LA for work. Because my husband's also an actor and we're always traveling. And I just decided this year, I was like, I'm going to try and just stay here. And thankfully when Martin called, he was like, yeah, I heard there was a guest star. And I was like, oh, I'll go do a guest star. Sure. Like, where is it? It's in LA. Great. And then Martin actually called me and he was like, well, it's not just a guest star. We're not, with these things with shows, how it goes. You never know, especially recurrings. It's just how the storyline is going to evolve. And as you've seen with the headquarters stuff, it's just an ever evolving thing. And with time travel, you do this here and then that changes that here. So maybe that person doesn't exist anymore. Like, I don't know. And that was kind of, he told me, I was like, well, what's the character? And then he said Dean Stockwell. And I was like, well, he's like acting royalty. And I got excited. I had seen the show as a kid, like here and there. My dad and my brother definitely watched it. And that was kind of it. There was a lot of mystery. The way you guys are feeling right now was how I still am feeling to some degree because, the scripts are still coming.
Well, it's funny that they had mentioned Dean to you specifically. When they approached you to play Janis, did they give you the background for the character, sort of where it fit into the legacy of the series to prepare you for your overall place in the universe? I guess what I'm asking is, how much did what come before inform where they started to approach your character in the new show, or if you can even answer that?
Well, you obviously have seen what at the time when I had the first call, I didn't know. It was as the scripts came that this was going to be an important. I mean, I actually don't even know when Janis came into play, because they did the pilot, and I don't know if Janis was always an idea or not. But it was definitely going to be an important piece. Being Al's daughter, it obviously comes with a lot of weight and a lot of significance from the original. And I do think it's important, like as a character, what you saw in 103 with what she went through with her mom and like growing up being completely groomed. I mean, I kind of think of it this way, like you guys love Quantum Leap, right? And imagine if your parents like created the show and like you went to screenwriting school and you were like learned all the episodes, which you guys have, and you knew everything about it and every actor, and they're like, you're going to take over. And it's the only television show that exists like in the world. And then one parent's like, actually, you know what? After all those years of prep, we're just not going to let you do that. So I think the reason why Janis, some people are like, oh, she's a villain, or, I'm like, well, it's kind of fair. Like she's supposed to be there, and it would have been, it was her legacy to inherit, in my opinion. And that was all I was really told. But obviously, as the scripts came, I'm finding out a lot more now, because as you see in the series, this is very sprinkled right now as we get towards the end of season 1. So if that answers the question.
Yeah, and I think what we're this isn't a question really, just a response to what you said. We know a couple of us have read the original pilot script, and we know she was in that. And
I hadn't read the original, so I don't know.
Yeah, so she does seem to have been a concept from the very start. And certainly what we're seeing is, although there was this kind of antagonistic element at the start of the show, we're now learning that, she's working with Ben, she's helping Ben. The last time we saw her, she was saying she was trying to give Ben some sort of warning. So
cattails,
yes, she likes to get involved in the interviews.
It was just so dark, and then it was like your own little tail just came up while you were talking. Don't worry,
definitely a cat.
There. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so no, just an observation, really, and I don't know how that affects your performance or your approach to the character. That she was sort of set up to be the antagonist or the villain of the series, but there is obviously this other side to her that she's there as the support for Ben, just a support that we don't fully understand yet.
Yeah, that's what I love about her, and it's actually been one of the harder roles in a way for me to balance and in the performance, especially in the episodes coming towards the end. It's been really interesting because with what I can say and not say, it's this how much information that one can give away, and I'm trying to put this in a way that I can say it. It's been a really fun character because every episode has been slightly different, and it definitely started off a certain way, but there's all this knowledge underneath it. And I think it's always fun when you go back and you rewatch something from the beginning. You actually see, you then re-see it. Now that you know this at the end, you start seeing those details in the beginning. And I have so many questions for the writers, a lot, because I'm very aware of the fact that that sometimes things change. And I'm like, I want to make sure that what's happening here, you know what I mean? If you went back and watched it, makes sense with where we're heading, even though that sometimes changes. And as an actor, that's a really fun thing to do, because I have to really think all the time of like, well, how would I talk to this person differently from that person? And why would I talk to this person that way? And what do I know? And like, all because Ben and I know about what's coming. Do you know what I mean? It's anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely been an interesting juggle.
When you were working with Susan, playing your mom, Beth. Were you able to kind of talk amongst each other about your backstories for like your individual characters and how they work into the Calavicci family? And like, did you have any thing in both your minds when you were playing those characters that we might not have seen on screen but informed your performances?
Yeah, we hung out in the trailer. I love Susan. It was very funny when I got the job. Susan had a scene with Magic, I think, in an episode before I had a scene. And I met her in the trailer and I saw her and I was like, I actually had looked this up before. When I was talked about the role, I watched like all the scenes, and I watched the scene where Sam comes back and talks to Beth, which just is the most heartbreaking scene. And then the other scene I love is the scene where Al talks to Sam about, I think this is the reason for this leap is for you. Beth's the only woman I ever loved. That whole scene, just like, he's just so good in it. And he's like pretending to not care. You know, he's looking at the hand link while he's talking to him. Anyways, and I saw the two of them and I was like, well, I'm lucky because like I get why I could be their kid. So that's like a nice, it's, you know, this was the way the role had to go, obviously with these two already existing, which I think is so cool because there's this link to the past. And I asked her so many questions about, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, well, how do you feel about the new show? And like, what was it like working with Dean? And, you know, all these, it was very fun. And we sat in the trailer for a while and we talked about, you know, when we were working on 103, that scene, we really had to, you know, I was like, well, what do you think? How long has it been since, you know, Dad passed away? How often have I seen you? Do I talk to you very much? Like, what's our relationship? And Susan and I definitely kind of went through all those details, and it had definitely been a while since I had seen her. But I think, you know, Janis had only just figured out what her mom did. And so it was very still present for Janis in that moment, plus the information that she obviously in 108, we know got some information from Ben and why she's even doing any of this. And yeah, we got to talk about it was fun. And we went over the scene and we talked about all those details. And I love that because I like hearing also what, you know, you kind of come in with your ideas of what you think they think, but then they tell you what they actually think. And it's always like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And that's the joy of creating something with someone.
Right. And putting that backstory in place for just to inform the way you do the character. Now, as we saw at the end of 108, we've sort of had a sea change in the way we're going to be viewing Janis going forward. Maybe not such a bad guy, maybe just working across purposes at Ben's request. So potentially an ally. Will we be able to see, do you know, a little bit more of that backstory of how she was being groomed to work for the project and then Magic decided, well, conflict of interest, maybe too close? Will we get to see any of the lead up that led to the initial meeting with Ben and then the stuff that leads up to her working against the project for all intents and purposes?
I can't say yes or no because I'm not sure because we still have we still have the rest of the season. We're still shooting. So I can't say yes or no. I definitely have a lot of questions about my relationship with Magic because I think I was groomed by, this is my personal, what I've created for myself is that I was definitely groomed by my dad. I'm the youngest of the 4 kids. So I'm like the baby. And I think that I was around, all the others had gone off and I was with, Al all the time. And I was interested in what he did. And I don't think that Al, I remember listening to you guys on earlier podcasts about do we think Al was just sad forever? And it's an interesting, I think that he got on with, my personal thing is I think he got on with his life, but I don't think, how do you ever? And I think it might've been you, Matt, or I'm not sure who it was, but it was like, how do you ever forget your friend, your best friend who's just lost in time that you completely, you know what I mean? You'd get used to it like we all do in those ways that we can think in comparison, but you would never forget because he's still alive. Like he's still alive for all we know. And I think I always had the goal of I think she had the goal of what her dad would have wanted. And I don't think there was ever an agreement that she was going to work for the program. I think she assumed it. And because she's pretty sure of herself and she's pretty smart. And I think she was like, well, obviously I would run this thing. You know what I mean? And then because that's the conflict of just assuming something that then really goes a different way and not even knowing it was your mom who didn't even want you to do it. There's definitely, I think, some things with magic, finding that relationship with magic, because there's a history there underneath, but also keeping the story going forward, because as you know, there's so much information to get into these episodes. But I've definitely thought about of that. Whether we'll see it fully, like a flashback to it, I cannot say.
I'm interested. You've you sort of mentioned a couple of times about the relationship with magic and whether or not we'll see this develop. So far, what we've seen of you on set has been, I think you had the work with Susan, you've done some work with Ray. Have you actually had much chance to interact with the rest of the cast and crew, or have you been kept quite isolated?
I don't know what would give away something.
Without this was just more. I'm just more talking socially, if anything, that rather than
I was
in
very
terms of spoilers for the series.
Yeah, I was pretty isolated in the beginning because I would just pop in. I mean, a lot of my stuff was made by myself, right? Like with the imaging chamber, and there was definitely, I was not around the main cast at all. Which was fine because it's kind of like how Janis is as a character. But I did get to finally meet Ray, who, as you guys know, is just really wonderful, and Caitlin. And, on shoot days, obviously, when we in the trailers, we all kind of pass one another. And so, but I've met more people now. That's all I can say. What do you want to see?
Unintentional fishing for spoilers.
What do you think? What do you think that's gonna? What are your ideas?
Oh, do you want our speculation?
Yeah,
now that
or what you want?
Yeah, I mean, as of the time that we're recording this, it's just the end of 108. We just found out that Janis is working at Ben's behest to save Addison from something. I think that now that we have that shift in perspective, I'm hoping that we bring Janis into the fold somehow, and that we see all of you guys working more in lockstep towards a common goal instead of at cross purposes with one another. Mm-hmm. I know that you probably can't answer that, but you asked what I'd want to see. That's what I would want to see because I'm intrigued by it,
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I feel the opposite. I like the idea that maybe ultimately they are going towards a common goal, but have different ways about it. And there is still this ongoing, slightly antagonistic relationship where you have the project team trying to achieve something, and Janis and Ben, I guess, trying to achieve the same thing, but in very different ways. I think that could be an interesting thing to play with.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I wish we did this interview after a different episode.
We can always have you back.
You'll have to come back.
I think those are both really nice ideas. Yeah.
Very kind. Yes. Very kind. So you have gotten to basically have a fan dream. Your character is the only one that has handled one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. So tell us a little bit about the prop that you guys were using for the handling. It was a little bit different than this one. And we've seen Janis now used it, I think, 2 or 3 times on screen that we've seen. Yeah. Are you guys still using the old stand-in handling? Have you switched to, because I know that you can get these now. Are you going to go the more colorful?
Mine doesn't have as much color as that. Mine's a little more bluey, greeny.
Right. So I think Matt can give you the history on that.
Yeah, so the one you're using seems to be a genuine relic from 30 years ago, which is in itself quite a surprise to us. So it was a stand-in hand link that was used for kind of stunt purposes or rehearsal purposes, but the fact that there's a 30-year-old prop still kicking around, albeit not a screen-used one,
they pulled it out of all
very cool to us as fans. We spotted it and immediately recognized it. So
you haven't gotten to use the new ones yet? The the new brighter colored ones yet. Yeah, Deborah had ordered 2 of them, and we were hoping she was going to use them on the show.
Oh, really? I don't know about that, but I will say that when you hold those things, you feel the fan base's feelings. You just do.
Yeah.
You're just like, there's so much significance to this thing. And, and I have listened to you guys and and other people who are like, I love Quantum Leap. And it's cool to be a part of something that already has all of this connected to it. You know what I mean? So, and I feel it, and you feel a responsibility too, because you're like, God, I'm out. I mean, when I first got the part, I was like, do I need to have a New York accent? And like, I was like, watching out. I was like, we're obviously 30 years in the future. You're not exactly like your parents. There's like, and Janis is a little more like there's a seriousness right now that's obviously going on. So Janis isn't getting to, it's not her on like a Friday night, it's a serious situation. So, but there's definitely glimmers of, I don't know, Al was pretty dry. And I do think Janis has that in her as we see more of what's to come. But yeah, holding the hand link was very cool. And having his ring, there's a lot, like there's things for me that I find because of the love for the show and because of the love for Dean as well. I don't know, it kind of comes with you. I know it sounds so silly because it's just props, but like they hold a significance that actually is helpful.
Have you referred back to Dean's performances in any other ways to help inform the way you carry Janis, the way she presents herself physically on screen, and anything like that?
Well, I watched a good amount of Al. I also watched Dean in interviews in general because his career is very interesting. I watched like this 45-minute just like interview that I found. And my main thing with Al is obviously, look, we're dealing with a different time of television and, so things can't be exactly, in a different time period in general. But one of the things when I actually just watch him is I try to think of it more like, this is my dad. You know what I mean? Like, what are the things about my dad that I like? What are the things that I don't like? What are, those Al, what am I like? And I think that, I think she was someone like Al, to me personally, would raise you with such certainty in certain things in your, like, you're just like, it's going to be okay. I'm going to figure it out. Cause like, that was something that I have created for myself, that she was raised to be pretty, confident and strong. I mean, yeah, that's kind of how I've looked at it, because to copy him completely wouldn't really make sense because I'm not him and you're not exactly like your parents. You know what I mean? And then there's also Susan's performance and who she is as the character of Beth and what that would give Janis. So that's kind of how I use that to the best of my ability within the storyline too. There obviously has to be moments to show these things. And I think it just depends on what situation a character is put in, but I think the importance of the project and what the project means, that is definitely right now just a very solid part of Janis. And that's really her. She's just very focused right now on that.
Are we ever going to find out why Beth held your character back from working on the project?
She kind of mentions it in 103. They don't really get, I mean, she just says, she's like, I just didn't want you to become like your dad about it, whatever that means. Because obviously that could mean lots of different things, or become obsessed with something. I don't know. Maybe Beth it'd be cool to see her again. It'd be cool if she has some information that maybe other people don't have. I personally, this is me now, I personally would love Magic and Beth to have some sort of relationship. I think that would be interesting. I just thought they were cute together. I just feel like there'd be a conflict there. I don't know. I just thought I was like, I thought in their scenes they were cute. That's just me. Yeah, that was kind of all she said, is she just didn't want her daughter becoming obsessed with something, but maybe she was aware that this was, maybe she had spoken to Magic a bit more and knew about what the project was doing and just didn't really want me to get caught up in that, because I do think Janis has a life. I don't think her life was just this. I think I think Janis assumed she was going to work there, and that was probably, I mean, I don't know how long has this been going, the QL program right now? Do we know that?
I think that they were established it for 5 years. They were building it, and then Ben leapt, and they still weren't quite ready.
Right.
But they were at the 5-year mark.
Right. So Janis was rejected a while. I think she'd already kind of, she was rejected, and then Ben came to see her however long ago. Has that been revealed?
Well, we know it's at least 6 months.
Exactly.
6 months ago that he started disappearing off.
Yeah. So I think Janis had kind of gone off and started her own, kind of gone on with life. I don't think she was sitting around waiting for magic to call. I think she was doing other things. And then Ben shows up. And, I think she's like, well, obviously, I mean, you need me. Yeah, that was all. And I think maybe Beth knows something. That's all I really know about that. And then what she said in 103, which was just, I just don't want you to, like me with my 5-year-old. I just don't want you to climb the thing. I think it's going to be okay. But it's not. Just on a much bigger scale. Like, what if I got lost in time? Who knows?
Right.
Yeah. Mother's
It'd be a bummer.
That makes sense.
Right.
I had a silly question about the Halloween episode, O Ye of Little Faith. There was a set photo that was released of the shadow, and it was the only photo that the actor wasn't given. And there's some speculation in the fan community. Was that Caitlin? Was that you? Do you know? Did you play the shadow? There was a person that looked kind of like you, kind of like Caitlin, but in heavy black makeup, a demon makeup, wig. Were you privy to that during your filming of the Halloween episode, or were you all green screen? Or
I didn't get any fun demon makeup.
Okay,
I don't know who that would be. Yeah.
So that eliminates you as a suspect. So
that's right. Mystery continues.
Good.
Yeah.
Right. Did you enjoy filming those little parts of the Halloween episode?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I had to do pickup. I mean, it was kind of like a pickup situation for me, just getting in those last moments and stuff. But that episode in general is very fun. The leaps are so fun. I have leap envy because I love period pieces. I'm a big I've worked a lot in different time periods in my career, and I love it because I just love what the crew is doing, in regards to wardrobe and makeup and set. I mean, they're pulling these things together under it's crazy. Every, when you have a show that's set in the 1800s, the whole show is set in the 1800s and you're pulling everything and you're set dressing and you're good. Right. But when you're getting scripts so fast and you're like, well, now we're in the 60s and now we're in the 90s and now we're here. I think it's so impressive, just everything they're pulling off. And then I get costume envy because I'm like, that looks kind of fun over there. I want to, I want to leap. Would you leap? Mm-hmm. You'd leap, right? In real life, if you had the option?
Well, only 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as I got to bring my daughter with me, and me and her would travel through time.
Go together.
Well, I think we're hoping ever since that reveal that Janis has her own imaging chamber, that you get to do, no spoilers, I know, but you get to do more of what Addison's doing and having scenes in the present day, doing all that stuff, and also popping up in the past. So
yes, I need to show up hungover in a bright shirt.
Smoking a cigar, maybe.
Yeah, a cigar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just calling people nozzles. It'll be great.
You see me leaping in 1970. I don't know. Cut that part out. They'll be like, she's trying to take my job leaping. I just like period pieces.
Yeah, so that's something we'd like to see. I mean, you're asking us what we'd like to see, where we'd like it to go. In as much as you can tell us, where would you like to see Janis wind up?
I'm similar to you guys. I think I never like removing conflict completely because that's no fun. I mean, it's fun to have some drama. I don't know. Obviously I'd love, it'd be so cool to find Sam. That would be the ultimate, for Janis to do that I feel like that would be very emotional for Janis, through her dad. I think that would be, just that one scene alone would be just like, I'd be like, I'm good. That was good. How great is that? That's so awesome for everybody. That would be a very cool thing. Other than that, honestly, I just get excited because when I get the scripts, it's always a little bit different than what I'm expecting now, which is fun for me. And that's why I like being an actor, because I like just getting scripts and figuring out like, ooh, what am I going to bring to this? And that's the excitement of it. So I'm just open for the ride because it's got a lot of options to it, which I think is what's cool about having headquarters is like, it's a slow burn right now because it's all being established. But I think it's cool to bring in this new element to the show and have, more things about what's happening in the day tied to the leap and like trying to fix the leap. And anyway, I think, yeah, that's my long answer.
Well, if you want to see if we can arrange that Janis rescues Sam, Albie has Scott's number. So Albie, you'll give Scott a call, right?
All right.
We'll get Scott on for. We'll put that in the works for you. Don't worry about it.
That'd be so cool. And then I'll have to talk to you once you have other information where we can really,
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
We've
back
been hearing that.
One.
Yeah. We've been hearing the same thing from many of the cast members saying, oh, we wish we could talk to you after this episode, or, when everything is revealed at the end, we could have a much more in-depth discussion about all this stuff. So we realized that, there are some constraints that we're all under at this point. But standing invitation to any and all who want to come back and really just let their hair down once everything has been revealed and we know sort of where the series is headed. We'd love to have you.
No, I know it's one of those shows where I think you guys ask really like unexpected questions, or you have unexpected details that you notice that I find I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thing. I didn't think about that, which actually is helpful, in performance when you listen to people talk about the show or things they like about the show. I actually find it interesting or don't like about the show. It doesn't matter because it all is like, oh, okay, that's an interesting view that they have. Like, how could I add that? Oh, I have this scene coming. How would that maybe answer that question? Or, it's all interesting. And that's what I like about art is that whether you like it or don't like it, it's something that people are talking about, which is really the point of it, is that you're like, oh, I'm thinking about it. And I think it exercises your empathy because you are seeing something through somebody else's viewpoint. You're like, well, they would never do that, which means you're understanding them to a certain degree. Do you know what I'm saying? Even if you're like, I don't think the character would do that, but you're like, I don't know. It's all, I just find it all very interesting, people's different views of it.
Well, we're gratified that you listen to the show and that, it's surreal for us because I've said this just on every interview. We're used to talking about a 30-year-old show where if we do talk to a guest star, it's a job they had, back in 1989. And let's say, what can I remember? I don't know.
Yeah.
And here you are in the thick of it. And, we're getting to speak to everybody in real time. It's quite a privilege and just, a great place to be as a Quantum Leap fan and podcaster. So, I mean, we can't thank you enough for coming, making yourself available, coming and reaching out to the fandom through us. I mean, is there anything else about the Janis character that we haven't touched upon that you would like to explore, or any messages for any of the Leapers out there who are listening?
The Leapers, well, I hope you feel. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know what I would say. I mean, I think, I hope that, not that I hope people like Janis. I think it's kind of, whatever. I just hope that they feel, actually, I don't know. I just want people to enjoy the show. And I hope that they feel that they're getting, I guess, through Janis. And I think there'll be more of that they get more of these details that connect them to the past, which is what's fun for the people who did watch the original series. And, I think they will ultimately like her a lot more. And that's all I can, and I hope so. And I guess thanks for being so, welcoming to this. I know for the main core cast, they've been like, it's cool. Because I listened to obviously Ray and Caitlin's and Ernie's. It was just cool. I know that they were saying about being welcomed into this new thing because it's big. It's not big shoes to fill. It's new shoes to fill, and it's also finding the balance between the new and the old. And I hope that people are getting at least, some of what they miss, and then something new that they get to be like, ooh, this is different. Yeah.
Very well put. Well, thank you very much, Georgina, for appearing with us on the Quantum Leap podcast.
Thank you.
And we're back. Georgina Reilly,
Wow.
Janis Calavicci herself. How cool was that?
That was cool.
That was
That was
cool.
cool.
She is an awesome person. She,
Speechless.
even before the interview and after the interview, she was just totally like on. She was having a great time with all of us, and she was just the best. It was amazing. And
I would have loved for her to have revealed every twist and turn for the next 2 seasons, but I guess I can't always get what I want. That's fine. I guess I'll watch the show.
She seems kind of keen to come back and talk about more when she's able to, though, which is always great to hear and see. So, in fact, I think just about everyone that we've interviewed has kind of felt the same. So, I'm looking forward to the inevitable cast and crew party that we're going to be having.
Yeah, after everyone can talk freely.
Yeah, we got everybody in the first half of the first season, so it's crazy. But yeah, they all want to come back and talk more about things because they can't talk about stuff. But I think Georgina told us a lot without saying anything. She was very emotive, and I saw her holding her tongue a few times. I saw some dimples. I saw some smiles that kind of indicated certain things. Of course, I'm probably reading into it like everything else, but it made for a good time.
I hope she ends up part of the main cast.
Yeah, absolutely. How could you not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, she's proving to be pretty indispensable with the storyline. So I think you can't keep her on recurring for too long if she's got to be that important.
And if one of the main cast members is going to turn out to be the big bad of season 1 or 2, they're not going to be at the project anymore. So that's going to leave an empty space of the project that Janis can just slip right in.
I mean, I hate to say it, but again, if it's Ian, that's the most, that's her skill set. So I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
I'm not pitching it. I'm
No.
not promoting it, but
No.
I don't know. I think that a season with Ian as the villain would be fascinating television. I think we've got to see it.
Yeah, I don't think it would be bad, but I just,
I think
Like
Mason
Ian, I don't
Alexander
wanna-
Park could do anything, and especially a villain. So I
really want to hear their evil laugh.
and maybe that's part of what I'm thinking. Also, is because they were Lucifer on the Sandman series, so that there's already that kind of, well, literally that duality, but also that duality.
they could do it amazingly, and I think I'd be okay with it if we get them back at some point, like there's an undo and now they're not evil anymore. That could, I don't know. I just don't want to lose Ian. Speaking of Ian, there was a couple good lines in this episode. They talked about conspiracy theories and how just because the whole world believes something doesn't make it true. So
That was
what do you
really
think of that?
Especially with the little rant about gender constructs and how as soon as they realized that that was all bullshit, then they knew that they had to question everything.
Yeah, they don't take anything at face value anymore. I thought that was really good. And yeah, like I think it's not the first time that like the cisgender society thing has been mentioned, but I think that's probably the most they've gone into it. And even that was, it was what, 15 seconds where they spoke about it. So
Mason Alexander Park was actually instrumental in coming up with that few lines. So that was good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So knowing that really made me appreciate it more. My other favorite part of the episode back at the project was when Ian said, "I'm not at liberty to discuss," but that's exactly what happened. Something like that. Of course, they did much better at delivering that than me. But I was like, "Oh, I got to use that in the future."
I'm not at liberty to tell you that's exactly what I did.
Yes, I was like, "Ah."
Yeah, I like that. It doesn't seem like anyone hates Janis or is mad at Janis. They're confused and they're perplexed, and they're like, okay, well, there's this big thing, and you've got information that we need. Why are you like? They're they're mad at the situation, but it doesn't seem like they hold her necessarily ill. It's like they know she kind of got a raw deal, and like, sorry, this is the way it played out. So yeah, I think that also adds to the idea that she was going to become a member of the project later.
And also, it kind of backs up my thought that maybe Janis actually planned this all along, because Janis immediately knew how Ian did it. So, yeah, if Janis was wanting to be caught and then to tell what she knows to put it in place, then she would predict it all.
I think Janis won over Jen in their conversation. I think Jen understands that Janis is not working against Ben. Janis is working with Ben, and I think Jen trusts Ben. So I think now, in turn, Jen trusts Janis. And I think that's going to happen pretty quickly with the rest of the crew.
And I think they are very similar, in terms of like they are inherently, but rightly, paranoid. Like they are accurately paranoid, both of them, and where everyone else in the project is kind of like, okay, well, I feel like you're maybe taking it too far. Like, no, this is, I'm arguably not taking it far enough. This is, you don't know the world the way I know the world. And so I think that they're, like you said before, I think they'll be a good team.
And they're both, I think, more of a realist than most people. Like they know the deal, and they know what needs to be done, whether it's against the law or against the rules or against the culture or not. They're going to do what they need to do, and they're not going to take any stuff, I think. I found it interesting that this whole time they've been pursuing Janis, and all it really took was for Magic to say, "Okay, let's go get her," and they went and got her. So I think he could have done it a lot earlier, maybe.
Well, they had to reverse engineer the future behavior tracking code.
Janis had to want to be caught.
She might have wanted to be caught just to get there.
Possible.
So maybe she does something while she's there, or I don't know. She might need to be there as part of her plan to help Ben.
But she could have gotten caught at any time. I guess that's, and I don't think you're wrong necessarily. It could definitely play out that way. But they've been trying to catch her for this whole time. Like, why would she continue to evade them if she was ultimately trying to? I guess to make it believable, maybe. I don't think she expected them to find her.
Okay, yeah, it looks pretty surprising when Jen asked her for the Wi-Fi password. So going back now that we know all we know up until this point at the end of 109, who can Ben not trust? And if we do our process of elimination of people that showed us things that if they were working against Ben would work against their best interest, who could that be? Just like a little mental puzzle here, because I don't think Jen's working against Ben, because she picked, out of all those things, if she was helping Janis, she wouldn't have picked Belize where Janis is. So I think that eliminates her as a suspect.
Unless it's part of the plan to get
the plan
into the project. I don't think we have enough information for me. I don't have enough information to speculate, because everyone seems, on the up and up enough. No one's acting particularly shady. And we don't know enough about what the ultimate mission was to know who would need to be a player or why.
So here's my idea for next week. Paging Dr. Song. While Janis is held captive in headquarters, she escapes, opens the back door, and lets Leaper X in so he can leap. Is that a thing? I don't know. Maybe she had to be there to do that.
Aren't they trying to stop Leaper X, though?
The project? Yeah. Well, not yet.
But Ben can't trust people at the project. So if
remember in
the enemy of my enemy is my friend or something.
Yeah, but remember in Salvation or Bust, Leaper X told Ben to stop chasing him. So that would suggest that they're trying to stop Leaper X, not.
Or at least Ben is, but that doesn't mean the project is. I think the project was like, well, we can't. It's not fair to move against him because he hasn't done anything yet. and he's he's a decorated officer. He's a good guy. Loves his mama. Loves Jesus and horses too.
Hey, that's a good song, I think.
Yeah, but like he doesn't. From what I remember, their perspective was, we can't punish him for something that he might do. So I don't know that they're trying to stop him necessarily. I think everyone is still just kind of trying to gather information. That's why Janis is so important. She's got the most information.
I think Janis knows everything that's going on because she knows what Ben knew, but Ben forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, now I want to go back and rewatch this episode again and see how Janis and Addison in the same room together at all? Or did that happen while Addison was on the leap?
I don't think Addison was there.
I don't think she was there because they definitely didn't have a conversation.
Okay, because she might have gave her the eye if she was there, like that look that you get when you're in trouble.
I think if she were there, she would have said something to her. I don't think she was there. I think she was wrapping up with Ben.
So far, I don't think my crazy theory of the week has been disproven. So we'll see how it goes.
No.
But, I'm wrong.
We're never going to disprove a theory until we actually see it on the screen. So
yeah. But I mean,
keep them up.
This is a great mystery. It really is. Like, at first I wasn't sure how the overarching mystery would really play out, but it's starting to pull me in more and more each week. And I really, it's the whole mystery box thing, what's in the box. I want to know. I need to know now. And I can have that part of the episode, and I can also enjoy the whole leap. And I think it's time for our ratings. So let's go with John first. Final thoughts on Fellow Travelers and your 1 out of 5 rating.
I mean, like I said at the top, I really enjoyed this episode. We only hold numbers, right? I'm gonna give it 5 lights. 5 out of 5 falling lights. I thought it was great.
Oh, cool. Hayden.
Yeah, the only thing that I didn't like was the fact that I could predict it in the main leap. So for that, I can't give it 4 marks, but I'm going to give it 4.5 phony walkie-talkies out of 5.
Well, I don't think it was their fault, Hayden. I think you're just a professor at maths. So you did all the math in your head while you're watching the episode. And that's how you figured out who it was. Because when I watched the episode, like I said, I was positive that it was Amanda. And then it ended up being Loretta, which I hadn't, on my first viewing, I had no idea she was in the whole episode until the end. And I was like, what? Who is this person? But then on rewatching, she's in almost every scene, somewhere saying something. And to me, that was, again, that was the good writing because she was there. And obviously, when you watch it again, there's something going on. But on the first watch, I didn't notice her at all. And I was like, who did what?
Yeah, I noticed her, but I didn't. She was one of like the 4 or 5, and I was like, it could be any of them. So I didn't.
Yeah,
that was all of this.
The 3 background singers, right, and the one other guy.
Yeah, there were 2 background singers, and there was one like the hair and makeup guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think it was his sister, and I didn't think it was Trevor, but there was still a few people it could have been.
Yeah, but I had no idea it was Loretta. I was like, who's Loretta now? What happened? So that was just me not paying attention and too into the story. But I mean, that's a good mystery. If you solve the mystery 2 minutes in and you're right, then it's not as enjoyable. So I get that, Hayden. I might have gave away what I think about this episode, but I'm going to give it 5 or 6. I think I have to go with a 6, even though the limit's 5. But this is, I know, the first episode that I'm going to watch.
Screwing up the averages, Albie.
I am.
Breaking the rules of time travel.
But this is one that I'm going to watch over and over again. And I'm very glad it's an episode that's airing at the start of the second part of the first season, because people that are, like you mentioned, John, might not have seen it yet. And they tune back in to see, hey, this Quantum Leap show. I think people that had watched the original Quantum Leap show that hadn't watched the series up until now will watch this show and go, this is Quantum Leap. I love it. I'm in, so I think it's perfect timing. And I'm going to give it a 6, even though I'm breaking my own rules, but it's that good. It's one I'm going to watch a lot. So it got better every time I watched it, which doesn't always happen. But with this one, it did. So overall, I think it was really great. John Irons, thank you so much for joining us this week. can you let people know where they can find you and what other stuff you do in case they don't know yet?
Sure. I am a host of my own podcast, Captain GameShow. It's a trivia, wordplay, and improv competitive game show podcast. We're wrapping up the season 4. I was going to try to get it done by the end of the year. I don't think it's going to happen, but pretty close to like early the start of next year will probably be like the last episode of the season. And Chris DeFilippis,
Love him.
obviously one of the hosts of the of the Quantum Leap podcast, is a regular guest on that show. So even if you haven't found me amusing or entertaining, tune in for more Chris.
If you ever have me on the show, could you have me on as a surprise during one of his episodes? Because I would love that.
Yeah,
he doesn't watch his show, so he won't know.
I never tell any guest who the other guests are. Like, no one knows who's going to be on the show until we start recording. So yeah, I can make that happen.
Cool. Captain Game Show. All right. Thank you so much. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Matt Dale for editing both the interviews we saw today. He did a great job. When we started the Quantum Leap After Show, I was doing the audio editing for the new podcast, for the new series. And I was doing all the video editing for the after show, all the interviews, and it was just overwhelming and too much. And so graciously, Matt stepped in and said, man, I got you. I'll help and I'll do all this stuff. And he's been just doing great. Not only does he book most of the interviews now, which is a big deal because it's a lot of work to get people that are busy to all their schedules to align, especially all the way around the world. Like we know from today. But he's also just doing a great job editing these interviews. And I watch him and I'm like, man, he's good. So thank you, Matt Dale, for all the hard work you're putting in for the Quantum Leap podcast and the Quantum Leap After Show. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Jamie Jackson and I want to thank Georgina Reilly for being part of the Quantum Leap podcast. I appreciate your time and it was great having you on. And I want to thank our patrons. You'll see most of our patrons on in the credits at the end of the show. Make sure you're watching, read all of them. Those are updated about the beginning of each month. So that's when new patrons can expect to see their names in the credits. So appreciate all you guys letting us do this. And it's very helpful. And of course, I'd like to thank you, John. Thanks for being here. I hope to have you on again. I just love talking Quantum Leap with you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's always great to be on the show with you. Thanks for having me back.
Anytime, and much appreciated. So for the Quantum Leap podcast, Quantum Leap After Show, I'm Albie.
I'm John.
And I am the backup singer named Hayden McQueenie.
Yeah. We'll go with John's thing first. Was that whiskey sign in a different episode? I think I remember it from somewhere.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Did that?
You look so funny in that shot.
Oh, me? Yeah. I have to look at back.
Just your face side on with the glasses, the stuff up close. You look a bit like a granny who's about to knit something.
I'm getting there, man. Time marches on. And
I think that's
Mason,
the first time.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you finish your thought. Okay.
I was going to say, You go.
No, you're more important. I'm here every week.
Well, I was going to say no.